Hello everyone and welcome to this review. My name is Dan Cruzel here with WIGaming.com. Back at you again, and this time we're talking about Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King. This game is developed by FDG Entertainment as well as published by them. It is on the Nintendo Switch and on Steam if you want to go pick it up there. It's $14.99 for this game, digital only. Blossom Tales is a charming and cutesy tale. It is an action-adventure game told by a grandfather to his grandchildren. Lily and Chris beg their granddad to tell them a new and untold story. He agrees, and this is where your adventure begins. You play as this character known as Lily. She is found fast asleep, only to be awoken by her grandmother. Does this sound and look familiar in any way? If not, you will easily recognize it here in a bit. Needless to say, Lily is sent to the kingdom for a grand surprise. As you all know, I'm not a big spoiler kind of person, so I will leave it at that. What I will tell you, and it even says so in the title of the game, is that Lily is a brave and courageous soul bound to gather ingredients to help make a potion to wake the king from his deep slumber. Throughout the game, the narrator known as Grandpa chimes in to tell a main objective, to add a bit of dialogue to go along with an item you receive, or when you take items that aren't technically yours. I did have a bit of a chuckle at the game's self-awareness at times. Lily, though with very little training, is quite the swordsman, or swordswoman. During combat, she possesses the ability to combo her attacks slashing twice, and following with a third 360 slash, or as they call it, a roundhouse. Now, very much like 2D Legend of Zelda, you can hold your attack button down for a couple of seconds to charge a roundhouse attack. The thing that separates this attack from Legend of Zelda, however, is that just after you release the charge, you can immediately follow up with an air slash attack. Not gonna lie, this was a joyous thing to see in action as it would decimate enemies in a single blow. That's right, people, Lily is OP AF. With 4 extensive dungeons to explore, Lily is given new weapons and items to help her along the journey, with each and every weapon almost always being handy for any situation that the game throws at you. The setback is that for every time you use a weapon besides your sword and shield, Lily uses a bit of energy, or mana for you RPG lovers. The energy you use varies from weapon to weapon. Bombs will consume a good chunk of your energy, whilst bow and arrow uses a bit less than that. There was never really an experience that felt similar to the last as far as enemies and boss battles are concerned. The puzzle-like elements, however, were fairly simple. I was never truly challenged in that aspect. I must say though, it was still fun being able to fly through the dungeon without much effort into thinking about a particular puzzle. I was always mindful of objects that weren't meant to be there, or conscious of walls with cracks in them, because what usually follows is a very useful item. Though, there were a handful of times I would go out of my way only to receive a buttload of coins. This wasn't too much of an issue, but when you open a chest only to receive currency of some sort, it doesn't feel as satisfying as, say, a new weapon or even a heart container. Speaking of heart containers, Lily is given both these and energy containers. Full hearts are given to you after defeating a boss, but quarter hearts and energy pieces are found by completing side quests or finding hidden treasure chests throughout the world. If I'm being honest, I would have rather they placed maybe a little more energy pieces throughout the world compared to that of heart pieces, just because of how much energy you consume using your sub-weapons. The direction of the game was very straightforward: obtaining the 3 ingredients and defeat Crocus. Sounds simple, right? In all reality, I was fairly impressed with just how extensive the main plot was. Not to mention the loads of side quests you could take on to learn a little more about the world around you. These side quests were, all in all, identical. A majority of them would entail that you hunt down enemies for specific items and return with a certain quantity. These would usually lead into giving you a heart container, or sometimes I would be surprised with a new weapon. Finally, say for example you stopped playing Blossom Tales for about a month or so. Unlike old school Legend of Zelda, you can pick this game up and immediately recall where you left off. This is because of the log tab in the menu, and if you haven't already beat the game, Blossom Tales plays a little intro into where the so-called story was left off. It was a nice little implementation on the developer's part. It helps tell you your main objective as well as who you've last been communicating to, and it makes it fairly easy for anyone to pick up right where they left off. What I really liked about the game is the whole plot in general was such a wonderful experience. I loved the narrative that was taking place as the grandfather was telling a story to his grandchildren, and I liked that the grandchildren were taking a part in the story and slightly altering what the story had done in their own ways. And in a lot of ways, if you haven't already seen the similarities, it was pretty much a copy and pasted format or code from Legend of Zelda. Though it felt like Legend of Zelda, it was nice to see the developers try their hand at a different story without losing that core action-adventure motive. The character dialogue was very nicely done, and even had me laughing at a couple of spots in the game. Let's not forget, handheld mode looked and felt spectacular, as it brought back so many memories of playing Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons for the Game Boy Color, and with the longevity of about 4 to 6 hours of playtime on a single charge. Not gonna lie, I really only had a couple things as far as cons are concerned. The game in its entirety, I felt, was really solid. As far as things I would have liked to see is perhaps maybe they could have included some of the flavor text for the items in the menu screen, as there were a lot of times I felt I would forget what the item is, and they just wouldn't explain to me what it is, so I would kind of have to experiment, and then all of a sudden it would be like invulnerability for a potion or something like that. I'm like, oh, cool, I just wasted that potion for no particular reason, but that was really the only problem I had with that. Another thing that I had some beef with also was there were a lot of different ways to get coins. It makes sense as to why they give you so many, as items from shops are usually pretty expensive, but I would rather have found a useful item compared to having purchased it. Final verdict, I'm not even going to hesitate to say that Blossom Tales is absolutely worth it. $14.99 is a perfect price for this game, and for an indie game at this caliber, it should definitely be a little more recognized. It is a must-have for the Switch, and in my own personal opinion, I believe that this game is rated around 9 out of 10. It's definitely my indie game of the year, so there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this review for Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King. If you are at all interested in Blossom Tales, I've included a couple of links down below to where you can buy this game. As always, you can follow us here on Twitter at IIWI Gaming. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, send us an email, iiwigamereviews@gmail.com. Also, if you like what we do here, please subscribe, as we are working hard to deliver more content each and every week. Thanks again for listening.